Welcome to the Indiana Farmer. Hello everybody, I'm the Indiana Farmer and thank you for joining me today. It's a beautiful day, the beginning of April, and the question I always have every year is, when do I start planting? When it's nice like this, but there's slush next week. So I decided to call a good old buddy of mine, Dan Ritter from Dairyland Seed, an excellent agronomist, and he's going to help us today decide when's the best time to plant.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the compliments, and we will try and fulfill those kind words and offer some information to growers out there and to your listening audience as far as what we're looking for this time of year when it's time to pull the trigger and start planting.
All right, so as we're gonna walk out here to the field, and I think I got Dan in here. Oh, hold on a second. Oh yeah, we got both of us. So as far as what's do we go by dates? What's your opinion on that? Dates, weather, what's your
all the above. As we walk across this field, we're going to be looking at soil conditions, how much soil moisture is there, residue, planting date. I mean, as far as your insurance date. So we're chasing the insurance date right here this week. So this week of April, I think April 10th for this area, where we're at now is the insurance planting date. So if you want to insure your crop.
And that's for corn? That is for corn. How about soybeans?
And soybeans, I believe, is a week after. I didn't have the exact date there, Aaron, on that one. But
for corn?
Basically, as far as the insurance date or the insurable date is for that area, what is considered a safe planting date. If we planted, say, in February or March, if conditions were right, we obviously know that's not going to be a very successful planting, and the insurance company wouldn't want to insure it. So from their standpoint, they're just looking at a date for the area where it would be agronomically sound to make a planting of corn and oats.
And what is the disadvantage of planting super early for corn?
Well, I think the disadvantage of planting too early is just we lack the heat, or we lack the ideal soil conditions to get proper germination of our seeds, which ultimately comes back into what we have as far as a stand. So if it's too cold, we don't have proper germination, we have a limited stand, and then we might have to look at a replant situation 3-4 weeks down the road.
No one likes replant, I promise you that. What are some factors I should consider before I get my planter in the ground?
I think the first thing is let's look at the date. So we're in this first week of April. We're at where insurance says, okay, if you have the conditions suitable for planting, we can plant. So we can check that list off. I think the next thing is, obviously you're a seed dealer, do you have the seed? If that's the case, then you take a walk out through your fields and you assess the soil conditions. So are we dry enough? And if we look here in this spot we're sitting in, about, I would say, as uniform as this field is, this is about the wettest spot you have in this whole field. Yeah. So you can see it's a little bit darker here. Maybe a day or two off, we get sunshine and we get good wind, it's going to be ready to go. But if you really look at the rest of the field, and it's getting just almost fit.
So for you farmers out there, I'll show you the type of soil. So a couple years ago, they dumped lime right here. And that's why it's the wettest part of the field. It's really a lot of compaction here. I've tried, but I haven't been able to break the hard pan underneath. So I'm gonna show you the soil here. Here. As you can see, it's a sandy loam, dark sand, black sand. It's a river bottom type of sand. Pretty uniform throughout the whole field. We got an 80-acre field for those who are curious. That's going to be a test plot this year. Thanks to Dan. Dan's going to help me on that.
So if we have right calendar date, our soil says it's time to go. The next thing, from a pure agronomist standpoint, we talk about soil temperature.
Okay.
And a lot of times we will say, hey, if it's 50 degrees, then it's time to plant. However, that said, many times, hey, we've said it's a little bit cold, it's in April, I'll wait, and it just seems like here in most recent history, the last 10 to 15 years, if it's April, if the soil is fit, and it might be a little cold, it just seems like the growers that I've worked with have had more luck going ahead and planting and not worrying so much about the exact soil temperature.
So what is optimum soil?
Optimum is going to be 50 degrees.
Okay.
And if we look at 50 degrees right at the seeding zone, so about 1.5 to 2 inches. And on that subject of planting depth, I lean, this is my philosophy, if we're planting early, I don't want it too deep, but the tendency is, hey, we want to shallow it up. And I like that on the deeper side of your planting zone. So that area where you normally plant for your soil conditions, I might go to the deeper side of that just from the standpoint of we get a little more insulation in the soil temperature. So we're planting earlier. If we plant just a little bit deeper, that'll keep us away from those real cold fluctuations where we might have a dip overnight into the 30s or something like that. So
is there any more consistency the deeper you plant?
As far as consistency in soil temperature, I believe it's a little more consistent there because that heat, today is a nice sunny day. If we got bare soil, we're going to be warming that soil up, but say tomorrow it turns off chilly again, then we could drop, say, that first inch of soil, we could drop that soil temperature back down. So that's just one of my, I guess, personal opinions, and you take what I tell you here on this little video clip, you listen to some of your other agronomists and trusted advisors, and you put together a plan that works for you. But those are kind of, I guess, my guidelines or my tips to look for this time of year.
50 degrees, okay.
And that's kind of the magic number for a lot of biological organisms. 50 degrees is where biology starts to occur. So when we talk about anhydrous in the fall, we talk about 50 degrees. A lot of our GDUs are based on 50 degrees as well. So that's just kind of a rough number. A lot of it depends on the insect species, depends on the environment, not so much the environment, but the organism you're working with. But that magic level seems to be about 50 degrees of where we start to see the biological organisms, in a sense, come to life and really start working.
So where do you think we are right now?
Boy, I don't know. We just got off of an agronomy conference call this morning. We're sitting in northwest Indiana. The guy that measured the temperature up in Minnesota was 30 degrees. So I'm saying we're probably going to be in that 40 degree-ish area. We get in a bare spot where we've got good dark soil and there's not a lot of cover on there. We could be popping up to that 50 degrees now. Our grandparents, what did they use? You always hear about them talking about when the oak leaves are the size of squirrels' ears. Well, we kind of joked at that, but the science behind it is we've accumulated enough heat units that oak tree has said, hey, I can shoot a leaf. Well, in a sense, we have, if you use a thermometer, you have accumulated enough heat to warm that soil up to 50 degrees. So we use a thermometer nowadays, and Grandpa, great-grandpa, just looked at the leaves on some of our trees.
Got any oak trees?
No, I don't think we got it. The other thing I think that really plays into what we look at when we are planting is what's the forecast going to be for the next 48 hours, for the next week. And I think that sometimes can be more crucial than some of the other conditions we talked about. So if we're right on the cusp of it's going to be 40 degrees and raining this time of year, 24 to 48 hours after we planted, I might get a little bit scared about planting that. And part of that comes into the fact of that seed gets planted, it has just enough time to imbibe moisture and get the biological processes going within the plant. It breaks the seed coat, and now it's a little more susceptible to the environmental conditions that are out there. So one of the things I really want you to watch is what's the next, say, 48 hours to the next week temperatures and growing conditions going to be like. And I think that's, if you have an idea of that, I think that's a very crucial decision-making process, as well as what this short-term weather is going to be before you go plant a lot of acres.
Next week, I think we got a lot of sleet. Is that what I'm seeing?
It doesn't look very favorable, so I'd be a little scared if I had a field ready to go today. I might be just a wee bit scared about going out there and at least socking a lot of corn in the ground or beans.
So just in theory though, let's say a person didn't get their planter ready. what would you tell them? When was a good day to be ready to go by, do you think, with our forecast?
I would say if you're ready to go, April 15th is a good time to really get ready to look at trying to get some crop in the ground. And it seems like the other thing I've noticed in the last, again, 10 to 15 years has been there's a window there towards the third week to fourth week of April, and that seems like that has been a sweet spot to get the crops in. And then in that holy grail of dates, the very last week of April, that first week of May, it just seems like it has just been nasty weather to try and get crops in. I don't know if you folks have seen that, but it just seems like the weather has not cooperated. And as a matter of fact, a lot of folks out within the agricultural community, Mother's Day weekend, we're really starting to say, you know what, just spend the weekend with mom and don't run a planter. It just seems like historically that has been a very terrible time to plant for whatever reason. And if I have an issue or a service call, a lot of times it seems to be around that 6th to 8th, 9th, 10th of May for whatever.
All right, hey, thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it, and keep tuned here. I appreciate you guys watching.